the next now now we have some more juice on Tesla losing. Apparently, there's another company that's doing EVs better than Texas, and you wouldn't believe what that company is. And maybe you haven't heard of
It
it.
likes to describe
but
itself as
BYD.
The biggest car brand you've never heard of.
now China's BYD has overtaken Tesla as the world's largest seller of electric vehicles. Even if you've never heard of BYD, there's a chance you've been in one of its buses.
I didn't even know they had buses in LA. Like, I've never heard of BYD before, but I never even knew all the stuff that they did. Like, when Tesla was working on their cars, I thought like, hey, who's doing all the commercial stuff? Who's doing all the commercial vehicles? Because that gives you so much power and things. But BYD stands for Build Your Dreams, and that's a I guess they're definitely doing it because they just overtook Tesla. And I guess this is the part of the team and things right here, but they are in this area. It's probably the team that works with them and stuff.
While its
but
taxis prowl the streets of some of the world's biggest cities.
They have electric vehicles everywhere.
But buses and taxis aren't the reason why BYD has overtaken Tesla. Instead, it's a fruit of long-term strategic thinking on the part of BYD itself and the Chinese government. And it's setting China up to be the dominant global player in the transportation of the future. Electric vehicles, a business that could be worth $8.8 trillion by the end of the decade.
8.8 trillion. You know what I could do with $8.8 trillion? Be one of the richest people in the world. That's what I would do with it. This is wild. This actually gave me an idea, but I'm gatekeeping. I'm not giving you guys no ideas on stuff to build and stuff, because if I want to do it, then and you guys know, you guys might beat me to it. So I'm gatekeeping on everything. Every idea I come up with, unless I've done it already and stuff, I'm gatekeeping it for right now. You guys will not know what it is, but 8.8 trillion dollars in a decade, building up to be worth that much, is crazy and phenomenal. And do you see all this? Like, they're beating Tesla for getting stuff across the world, and I don't even think they explain the full reasonings why just yet. But
Here are the three most important things that have made BYD the king of EVs. The Chinese government has played a huge role in BYD's rise.
We've arguably never seen anything like this in terms of, the amount of support that China has extended to automakers, specifically pertaining to EVs.
Beijing has given an estimated $30 billion of tax exemptions to the industry since 2010 and may waive a further $97 billion by 2027.
China actually takes a carrot and stick approach. They set mandatory EV output targets for automakers, but they also offer cheaper loans and cheaper land and R&D subsidies to all those EV makers.
And BYD has been a massive beneficiary of that. It still sells most of its electric vehicles in its home market. But of course, Tesla has also benefited from Chinese subsidies, which is where the
so China, their government alone is helping them a lot. But Tesla, I did hear stuff about Tesla doing work in China and getting a bunch of benefits from things being in there. But they actually are home there. So they got the home field advantage. They have all the advantages and things like that. And it's just going to get better for them there because they have a place to grow, and their government's giving them a place to like grow their wings and invest more money into themselves and put more money into it and make more money and spread out. Like, it's crazy.
second reason for BYD's rise comes in. Most of BYD's cars are simply a lot cheaper than Tesla's. In fact, it sells 10 popular models starting from less than Tesla's cheapest.
Hold on.
offering for the Model 3 sedan.
So in the Model 3, there's a lot of different versions of it. I believe I drove. Was it a Model 3? I think I drove a Model 3 in Florida. I forget which model I drove, honestly. It's been so long. It's been like 4 or 5 months since I drove it. Hopefully, I can still drive electric vehicles. I believe I can. It's not too big, but this is Tesla's cheapest car and vehicle. These 10 are BYDs. And the only place that they have to grow is up. Tesla worried about making all the luxury cars up here and stuff. BYD said, let me focus on all this stuff. All the little guys get all this. More people are going to buy our vehicles because they're a lot more cheaper. They're a lot more affordable, probably easier to maintain, and they can make them cheaper for certain reasons too. I'm sure, compared to what Tesla and what they're doing. Tesla has one advantage on why they're so successful, and that's because of Elon himself. He pretty much is the marketing campaign for Tesla itself. Because every time you hear him, everybody thinks about Tesla and they think about how great it is and stuff. But they have 10 vehicles BYD has 10 different vehicles that are all cheaper than Tesla's.
And
that's
BYD
crazy.
sells a lot more of the cheaper vehicles in its lineup.
They have very cheap models starting from $10,000 US.
Their approach has been extremely different in the sense that Elon Musk believed that you had to sort of start from the high end with a sexy performance car to get people interested in electric cars and then work your way down the price spectrum. BYD went at it from the other end, where it was about cheap taxis and buses that needed a heck of a lot of batteries, and really sort of, drove down the prices of the batteries that they could put into passenger cars.
While the average price paid for a Tesla is about $45,000, the average BYD sells for roughly half that.
And this is another thing we saw it recently too, about Elon and his business model and things. The Cybertruck just released, and then I did a whole episode on the Cybertruck. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's amazing. It is audio only. We didn't get to go into all the imaging and stuff, but if something new comes out about it, we will go into all of the details and stuff about it. Trust me, we will do it. We will do it. But one of the things about Tesla is the Cybertruck. They came out with their best 2 models already ready. They came out with their most 2 expensive models, and their cheapest model for the Cybertruck you can't get yet. It's to be announced for all the information on it and things like that. They're not worried about making that stuff yet. But this is the thing, like BYD thought about the little people. Hey, we need to get all these stuff out there. How many buses can you get out there? You know how many buses run or are in those stations all the time? There's so many buses that go around in them stations. It's crazy the amount of buses that are out there. You know how many taxis that are out in different countries and things, or that can be in different cities? Can you imagine if BYD got a contract with Uber or Lyft, and people who work for Uber and Lyft can just use their vehicles instead of their own? Like, I get people using Teslas and stuff, but they normally charge more for the Tesla on Uber. So if you go on Uber, the Uber X's or Blacks or whatever they're called, those are like the Teslas. If you do anything in them, they're more expensive for the Tesla Ubers. BYDs, they will be in the regular Ubers, regular ones. As much as they cost, they be in the regular ones. More people get to be in them. More people get to see how they like them. More people will experience them if this became a thing. Especially if it came to America and they became big. Build your dreams. They're going to be building some dreams, all right. And their dreams right here.
That, of course, raises the question, how can it sell them so cheaply? The secret to that price tag lies in what is known as vertical integration.
Our vertical integration capability gives us the flexibility in the fast response to the market trend, as well as the better support for brand developing and customer service.
That's a fancy way of saying that they make a lot of the things that go into their vehicles themselves.
Car makers usually buy most components from
And I said this before about that whole scandal that happened with OpenAI when their CEO left, and then he helped start an AI chip company, and then they ended up working with that company now, so they're able to get these cheap chips, AI chips, a lot cheaper than all their competitors are going to be doing. This is what BYD is doing this on another level. They're building everything. They started as a battery company, I believe, and they just built up from being that company and just kept building up different steps until they have all the necessary parts that they mainly need to build their vehicles. And then now they put their vehicles together for cheap because the people who are making most of their stuff is for them. It's smart. It's really smart.
Suppliers such as Bosch, Continental, and Aptiv. Volkswagen, for instance, only makes 35% of the parts in its ID.3 electric car. Tesla, meanwhile, makes 68% of the parts that go into its Model 3 made in the US. BYD makes 75% of the parts that go into the Seal, its flagship.
So Tesla was what? 68%. For their cheapest vehicle, they make 68% of their stuff. So it's not all of them, but BYD is at 75%. So with an additional 7% of making your own stuff in the cars, and these can vary by different parts. Like they can be making different stuff for different things or whatever it is. That 7% is keeping them making their cars way more cheaper. Or it could be two things. It can be one, it's aiding that much more to help make their vehicles cheaper, and then two, they're just not looking to upcharge that much more for people to get their vehicles.
Model.
So
the most important factor is that
to help their profit
BYD is the
margins.
only automaker that produces all of its batteries in-house.
That was hugely important during
Only
the
one to
pandemic
produce their
when the
batteries
supply
in-house.
chains were just absolutely
Because they
in
started
a
as
state
a
of
battery
chaos for
company.
the industry. The fact that BYD was in control of its own destiny gave them a huge leg up over the rest of the industry. And especially as it pertains to batteries. This is a company that has been in the battery space since the 1990s.
BYD actually stands for Build Your Dreams. It started out in 1995 as a battery company. They make rechargeable batteries for mobile phones and other electronics products. And then the company got into the auto business in 2003.
Making its own batteries and other components helps it reduce a lot of costs. That's attracted some big-name investors.
Call it the continued BYD promotional roadshow, and investor Warren Buffett brought his buddy Bill Gates along for the ride here in Beijing.
It was fantastic. I'm amazed at the quality of that vehicle.
Warren Buffett was one of the biggest early investors in BYD through his holding company, Berkshire Hathaway. And the battery technology might also give BYD a technological edge over some rivals. It uses lithium iron phosphate, which is not only cheaper than other batteries, it's also packaged a lot more compactly. And chemistry is a core expertise of founder Wang Chongfu.
He's sort of the anti-Elon Musk. Wang is a chemist by training and an engineer, and an anecdote that one of our reporters was told was that when he was told he needed to dress up a bit for an investor meeting, he stopped to buy shirts just sort of off the street. And so he's far from one of the flashier executives in the auto industry.
比亚迪在这个电池和整车这个试验方面，我们一直做的比较领先，比较早。那我们在这方面的技术的话呢，也会沉淀的多一点。
They called him the anti-Elon Musk. Elon Musk. Don't tell him I just messed up his name. But I mean that is crazy. When you see stuff like that, you're just like, dang. And like, what more can you get from it? And one of the things that it's weird seeing certain stuff like this, right? Like a lot of news becomes public, but they basically gave a blueprint to so many other companies or startups that are trying to do this stuff and go into this space. Mind you, they're already light years ahead, them and Tesla, but they gave the blueprint on what to do with their batteries. How can you make them more compact? Um, how are we gonna be able to get them out there? And they're about to get more information on how they're gonna go global with it. And there's so much more stuff I want to talk about, but episode getting kind of long, so we'll see how this goes. This ends.
This has all set BYD up to be the biggest player in electric vehicles. The question now is whether it can become one of the world's biggest car makers, full stop. And that means growing outside of China.
In 2021, BYD started to step up its global expansion. It started to launch more passenger vehicles across the global markets, including Middle East, Southeast Asia, and Europe. It's still a very new entrant in global markets. The volume contribution is rising, but still small.
Even so, BYD inside 3 years has become one of the top-selling EV brands in markets such as Thailand, Brazil, and Australia.
It also remains to be seen whether this company can, quickly grow in some of these newer markets that it's entering where it isn't well known, it isn't recognized.
The two most prominent challenges in BYD's global expansion will be first, regulatory uncertainties, and second, brand awareness. The European Union is investigating into Chinese EV subsidies. Chinese automakers, they are exporting more of their EVs into Europe because those cars are produced in China, so the production costs are pretty low, which allows the automakers to set their prices in the Europe cheaper than the European counterparts, which has been very alarming to the European auto industry.
One way around that will be to increase the amount of local production.
Definitely, localization is one of the very important strategy of BYD's Europe.
So they figuring out how to do it, honestly. BYD is something to look forward to. I think they really are gonna do it. I didn't even hear about them until this news came out, and I saw this news, and it's crazy because of how much they've grown in such a when they did their global takeover thing, let's say, they've taken so much stuff. They've done so much alone with all of it, and it's really surprising. It's really dope. It's good to see that somebody took it from another approach. Elon took it from this approach. They took it from this approach, and they somehow found a way to be in the middle, and they kind of beginning to overtake them. And it's something that Elon might need to start worrying about. Elon, if he wants to stay ahead of this, I feel he would have to be the person to sit there and say, hey, how can I get my vehicles out to more people, and what kind of vehicles I produce? They working on buses, taxis, all of that. They probably gonna be working on electric scooters too, and all of that. Electric bikes, they probably gonna have it all. Yeah, beyond with the cars and stuff like that. So one thing that Elon has to do is try to find a way to make Tesla more than a car and trunk. They just now got to their trucks, and Rivian's up there now and stuff. Rivian's doing stuff. They making vans for Amazon. What is Tesla doing besides making their Cybertruck and their different kind of cars and their luxury vehicles and their sport vehicles and all of that other nonsense? What is Tesla really doing besides that? He needs to find more ways to get them to more common people, increase the market, how many people have Teslas in the market, get more contracts with certain companies so that they only use their vehicles and the Tesla vehicles, because this new world of EVs is going to grow, and this is going to be the new Camry. BYD going to have the new Camry. I'm calling it here now. They said even the European cars and stuff, they overtaking that market because people want these vehicles more. They want an EV. They're way cheaper. They're making them in-house. They're making them local, doing all the manufacturing in China and stuff, and then shipping them out. They're not doing the making them over here, making them over here, making them there, making them there. They're not doing all of that. They're not keeping it all to themselves. They're figuring it out and then they're shipping it out right now. And the demand is only going to increase for them. And they might be an investment because that is a crazy take on tech.